Okay, we're back. We're live. We have another great show for you now. West of Asia in the ThinkTech series with Ehsan Ahrari in the Beltway. He's the principal of Strategic Paradigms. And today we're talking about, for better or worse, in the Middle East, taking a look at some of the events that have taken place in the last few weeks since we last spoke to Ehsan Ahrari. Hi, Ehsan. Thank you for joining us today.
You're quite welcome. How you doing, Jay? You doing all right?
I'm ready for Thanksgiving.
So am I. All right.
Well, let's touch base on some of the, I guess we could go geographically here. Let's touch base on some of the things, that are happening. For example, you had a BBC interview a little while ago on Pakistan and a special political appointment there. Can you tell us what happened in Pakistan?
Well, this last night, the Prime Minister of Pakistan he announced the name of a new general, Chief of Army Staff. His name is also General Sharif, but he's not related to Prime Minister Nawaz Sharif. Mm-hmm. The most interesting part of his selection is his specialty is he is writing the Pakistani version of the counterinsurgency doctrine and Pakistani version of counter-terrorism doctrine. Mm-hmm. And he is doing it, he has done it at a time when Pakistan is facing some serious challenge from TTP or Tehreek-e-Taliban Pakistan, who is sworn to destroy the government of Pakistan. They don't believe in they don't share the legitimacy of the government. They think the government is illegitimate because it's quote-unquote slave of the United States, and they think that the Constitution violates the Sharia, the Islamic law. But the question is whether General Sharif will be allowed to implement the counterinsurgency doctrine and counterterrorism doctrine, on which he has written manual, just to revive the tradition of General David Petraeus. That's exactly what he did before Bush appointed him as the commander of Iraqi forces in 2007. Mm-hmm. And of course, the coin became successful in Iraq, but largely because the Sahaba movement, the Iraqi, the Sons of Iraq, or the Sunni groups of leaders who were disgusted with Al Qaeda in Iraq. And with Al Qaeda's murderous techniques, they decided to cooperate with the United States in fighting Al Qaeda, which resulted in pretty much of a elimination, at least on a temporary basis, of Al Qaeda from Iraq. But when we left Iraq in 2008, they came back, and they are killing and murdering people with a vengeance. So my point is that General Sharif, he is also focused on counterinsurgency doctrine, and he's saying that traditionally Pakistan has been focused on fighting India, what they call India-centric fighting doctrines. Mm-hmm. Now his position is, yes, India-centric fighting doctrine is okay, but we have to worry about, first and foremost, this counterinsurgency doctrine and counterterrorism doctrine, so that we can fight the extremists in the country, which I think, from my point of view, it's right on. It's absolutely first rate. Yes. I have been talking about it for a long time, as you know, that they have to get rid of it. Instead, the government of Pakistan is trying to establish the basis of a dialogue. And I kept saying, you can't have a dialogue with an entity which wants to kill you.
Yes.
So you cannot have that. I mean, it makes no sense.
So where does Sharif stand on that? His counterterrorism plan would be not to negotiate, but to try to wipe them out?
Well, if he gets the order from Prime Minister Sharif's government, Nawaz Sharif's government, then he can determine his strategy. But in principle, yes, in principle he wants to get rid of them or eradicate them or minimize their existence and power. So that's a good start. Yeah, that is definitely a good start. Well, so that is.
I just wanted to connect that up with the events involving the Taliban and so forth, and Al Qaeda in Afghanistan, because I don't think that's real stable right now, And how do you feel about the agreement that Karzai won't sign in Kabul?
Well, that agreement is. I simply have problem in understanding some of the rationality of President Hamid Karzai because some of his stands are valid. He's saying that the night raids and all that stuff is it has to stop, and it should be under the leadership of the Taliban force. I mean, Afghan forces. But what happened was recently, even though Americans gave the Afghan forces lead in those raids, but then they killed some people. So Karzai got further disgusted. He said, nope, now the first and foremost condition is those raids have to stop. And so he's saying that even though the Loya Jirga, the Afghan version of People's Assembly, they have approved the agreement, he's saying that I'm not going to sign it. So my sense is that he knows what the future of his country is without American forces. Afghanistan will become same kind of a horrible place as it was between 1996 and 2001 during the Taliban regime.
Yes.
So Taliban, I think they are on the offensive, and now they only share the name with the Pakistani Taliban. Afghan Taliban are different. That's a separate entity. Al-Qaeda in Afghanistan is not a threat, but Al-Qaeda on the borders of Pakistan and Afghanistan is a threat. So that's why General Sharif's new emphasis on counter-terrorism and counterinsurgency doctrines becomes extremely crucial and very timely, except or unless it is vetoed by the government, his civilian bosses, and that's a different story.
Well, if you put this together, the events with Karzai, which are a little disconcerting, because from where I stand, I don't see that the American presence is really a threat to Afghanistan, but apparently he wants to, at the last minute, negotiate changes that would limit the American presence, further limit the American presence.
I think, actually, not to trivialize the issue, but Karzai and Obama never got along. Bush treated Karzai with a lot of respect. He used to have regular video conferences with him. He respected him. He talked warmly about him. So that relationship not only totally disappeared when President Obama came to office, but Obama and his close people started to insult President Hamid Karzai and making statements like, on a good day when he's taking his medicine, he's all right. Otherwise, when he's off his medicine, he's. So you see, this type of a behavior is totally unacceptable within the political environment of Afghanistan. So it's a very sad thing that our top diplomats, who are supposed to be sensitive to foreign cultures, especially cultures where they have been living in for several years, but they're so their understanding is so shallow that they make stupid statements and makes offensive statements. So there's a long history, 4 or 5 year long history of insults and counter insults between Karzai and Obama people, and it has been publicized every time President Obama went there. Their surprise visit, you can see in the body language, they just don't like each other. Obama is considered to be a very cool, kind of a distant fellow, and he's that way here with our Congress, and he's more that way with the leaders that he does not like. He's that way with the Israeli Prime Minister. He does not like him. Netanyahu doesn't like him either, and he does the same thing to Karzai. So Karzai, he retaliates in his own way. Now, in the process, what's happening is the interest of Afghanistan, and more to the point, the interest of the United States of fighting terrorism is being jeopardized. So I'm not very hopeful unless Karzai changes his mind within a week or so, because we have given him warning publicly. The Secretary of Defense, Chuck Hagel, has stated that if President Karzai doesn't sign the agreement before December, the planning of our future force state is going to be seriously jeopardized. So he is on notice, but he's totally unmoved, until today. Maybe I'll wake up in the morning and find out that he changed his mind, Karzai that is, and he's saying, okay, I'm going to sign it. But right now, things don't look good.
Yeah. Well, what's your prediction? I mean, first of all, I mean, is the end of year a real deadline, or is that an artificial deadline? It sounds like it could be moved pretty easily and may have to be moved if the agreement isn't signed or it's not clear what he's going to do.
Yeah, I think both the U.S. and Afghan sides are indulging in a kabuki dance.
Yeah.
You know, the real intents are hidden behind the mask. I totally agree with what the way you described it. I don't think that signing before the end of the year is like a theological principle that should not be violated. American military is one of the best planning forces in the world, so we can work around any short-term contingencies and all that stuff. But I think we're doing this kabuki dance to see who gives in first, or maybe it's kind of a low-level brinkmanship to see who cries uncle, or the chicken game, you know, or the good old chicken game, who at the last minute tries to avoid head-on clash and veers off. So this is kind of a silly game that's taking place between us and Afghanistan.
Given you know, the difficulties with Karzai and the fact that Taliban is growing right under his feet, I guess he's personally involved in this, you know, on a personal level, and he's not really thinking of either the relationship with the U.S. or the protection of his country. What's your prediction on how this is going to work out, especially in view of hopefully the appointment of General Sharif in Pakistan?
I don't think that appointment will have any effect on Afghanistan, in the sense that General Sharif will not be interfering in Afghanistan affairs directly. Indirectly, since Pakistan has been accused of controlling the Haqqani group, which has been attacking the ISAF, International Security Assistance Forces, headed by the United States. So in that sense, depending on what General Sharif decides, actually what the government of Pakistan decides, things may change and may not change. But the conflict between Karzai and Obama, that's just a different story, but all by itself. We are trying to negotiate with the Taliban of Afghanistan to see whether we can come up, by we, I mean us and the Taliban, can come up with some sort of an agreement for the U.S. departure. Karzai was not happy because when we decided to talk to the Taliban in Doha, Qatar, what they did is they rented a building or bought a building, and they put up a flag of the Taliban, and they called it the Embassy of the Emirate of Afghanistan, which royally annoyed the heck out of them. I'm putting it in a very civilized phrase, which royally annoyed the Karzai. So you see, the series of events, incidents, and developments. I don't think President Obama really tried to understand how to manage the crisis in Afghanistan or in Pakistan. That is the problem.
Okay,
So,
we're going to take a short break, Ehsan. That's Ehsan Ahrari with.
We want to thank our underwriters.
Hawaiian Electric Company and its affiliates Maui Electric on Maui and Hawaii Electric Light Company on Hawaii Island are deeply committed to the communities they serve.
Galen Ho is a senior executive of BAE Systems, a global defense, security, and aerospace company.
The High-Tech Development Corporation, the state's leading technology agency, attached to the Department of Business, Economic Development, and Tourism.
Castle and Cook Hawaii, with a time-honored legacy that spans more than 160 years and revolves around its mission of investing in Hawaii, creating communities, and providing for the needs of our state.
Hawaii Gas, formerly the Gas Company, a proponent of the Liquefied Natural Gas Initiative, helping Hawaii achieve its transition to clean energy and a better energy future.
Collateral Analytics, a Hawaii-based tech company empowering the real estate industry with greater and faster access to the tools and data they need to make better informed property investment decisions.
I'm Nicole Horry. Thanks so much for joining us on ThinkTech.
I'm Maria Kashem. See you next time.
Okay, we're back. We're live here on West of Asia in the ThinkTech series with Ehsan Ahrari of Strategic Paradigms in the Beltway. We're talking about the Middle East, and my title is For Better or Worse in the Middle East. Now we want to get to the main course, Ehsan, which is the agreement made with Iran. That's extraordinary. It's the first kind of denouement, since 1980 or so. How well did we do? You said this was going to be the Super Bowl of negotiation. Was it?
Well, I think it started out quite nicely. Lot of, unbeknownst to a whole bunch of us, a lot of groundwork was put in. A lot of secret negotiations took place for 2 or 3 years. Even when President Ahmadinejad, the Iranian hardline president, was in office, and there were a lot of secret diplomacy taking place between Iranian and U.S. officials and non-officials, the track 2 level, as they call track 2 diplomacy. So as a result of that, when President Rouhani got elected, and of course President Rouhani, before he was elected, he was also involved in those conferences and dialogues unofficially. So when he got elected, Obama decided, okay, well let's pursue, see whether we can raise this level of contacts to the highest level and start negotiating, because Iran expressed an interest in negotiating. So that is the most important thing. What started the ball rolling is the fact that aside from President Hassan Rouhani's election last June for presidency, Khamenei, the supreme leader and the strongman of Iran, who determines everything, who says yes and no to everything and anything, he decided to give a go-ahead to having this top level negotiations with the United States. So that got the ball rolling. Now, since Iran is interested in, of course, the U.S. economic sanctions, let's not forget that. Mm-hmm. The U.S. economic sanctions are being imposed on Iran since the days of President Clinton. In fact, I would argue that even President Carter, he froze Iranian assets during the Iranian Revolution in 1979 and 1980. So the history of imposing sanctions of Iran is a long one, but especially under Obama, because Obama has operating regarding Iran as he is regarding with a lot of other major issues multilaterally. He has been involving all the great powers and so on and so forth. He has been very successful in imposing those economic sanctions, and Iran is reeling under the burden of those economic sanctions. Iran's ability to sell its oil has deteriorated. Inflation has been reported as high as 30%. Unemployment is supposed to be as high as 25 to 30%. And Iran has the largest number of people in the region under the age of 30. So he's a young country. Here's a country which has the population of which has no memory of what transpired when Islamic Revolution came, and they are very open to having diplomatic ties with the United States, and they are very much open to living in a democracy. So all these things are developing, and of course I have to give credit to President Obama. Iran may is an important phrase there, may turn out to be a success story for Obama's legacy, because regardless of what he says on the radio, that all or nothing and all that stuff, he understands that Iran and the United States have had a history of 50 or plus years of hatred, animosity, antipathy. We have been trying to destroy the government of Iran directly and indirectly since 1980. And the latest version of that was the so-called, internet attacks on each other's infrastructure. Mm-hmm. So, given all that this bitter history, this long history, I don't want to bore your audience with all the details, but given all the history, the fact that President Obama telephoned President Rouhani while he was visiting the UN, and President Rouhani decided to accept the call and had some small conversation with the president, and given the fact that at the highest level, the foreign minister of Iran and Iran's ambassador to the UN and Susan Rice when she was our ambassador at the UN. They have been talking informally and discussing the possibility of starting this negotiation. All these things are good, but we have no reason to be highly optimistic or Pollyannish about it, because Iran, most importantly, Iran is not interested in freezing its nuclear program, which we want, which Israelis want. What Iran is going to do is Iran is going to, in the interim agreement, it has agreed to only do the 5% level of uranium enrichment as opposed to 20% level, which is bomb grade or nuclear weapon grade uranium. 5%, of course, is much lower grade. So that's acceptable to us. So by saying yes to Iran's proposal, we have tacitly told Iran, okay, we kind of give wink and a nod to your continued nuclear research program. That is a big symbolic victory for Iran, and of course Israelis are very much upset with us. So that's a good start. But now Iran is expected to offer more concessions. Whether it's going to do it or not, that's a big if. And from the Iranian side, they want these economic sanctions to go away. And most importantly, they want the United States to publicly legitimize and say that yes, we consider Iranian government legitimate. We're not going to try to overthrow it, bring about regime change, and then show some demonstration here. Demonstrate its goodwill. So all of this stuff is not going to happen overnight. It's going to take 3 months, 6 months, 9 months, maybe a couple of years. So as long as President Obama's maybe third or fourth year, if this process were to continue, I see a great future for U.S.-Iran diplomatic ties, because Iran is probably right now the most important Middle Eastern actor. It has the highest one of the highest numbers of highly educated people. It has been running rings around us and the Saudis in the field of diplomacy. Iran has a lot of influence with Syria. Iran is supporting, along with Russia, the government of Bashar al-Assad. And if we want to have any kind of semblance of negotiations in Syria, Iran's cooperation is extremely vital. Mm-hmm. So you see, all of these variables are related. Yeah. And of course, things are going very badly for the Iraqi government. The Shia-Sunni tensions are rising. Al-Qaeda is very active, is killing Shia left and right. And the government of Iraq has been extremely inept, extremely incompetent. So we have to have some influence, some presence. I'm not saying military presence, but we have to cooperate with Iran, because Iran has a lot of influence in Iraq. Iran is next door to Iraq. The majority of Iranians are Shias. Majority of Iraqi are Shia, same sect, and they have powerful linkages between theological institutions of Iran and Iraq. So Iran has a fantastic opportunity to help us, especially in terms of lowering the Shia-Sunni rising rift.
So what do you say about Benjamin Netanyahu's concern and suspicion that this is all a facade to make us stand down on the nuclear question?
Well, I think Prime Minister Netanyahu is exercising a classic case of duplicitous diplomacy. He's running a strategic campaign, which is a euphemism for propaganda, in couching the U.S.-Iran negotiation in the darkest possible phrases. So actually, he has lost credibility. He's as believable in the UN today as Ahmadinejad was when he used to give his version of rank. So. No, I can understand why Israel is concerned about Iran becoming a nuclear power. Okay, fine. Then how are you going to do it? Israel wants, number one, either Iran to totally stop its nuclear program, or go ahead and let's go bomb the hell out of Iran. That's not going to happen. And my point is that Israel is not capable, despite all the hard-headed talk that we're going to take action. What action? If you were capable of taking action, you would have taken it like you bombed Iraqi nuclear reactor in 1981. The things are different now. Iranian nuclear facilities are scattered all over the country. They cannot be destroyed in one or two air raids, and they are all situated in a highly populated area. Imagine the loss of civilian life, and imagine the turmoil as a result of that. So Obama's approach to dealing with this nuclear conflict with Iran is a superb one. This is a fantastic one. It should be endorsed. It's laudable, and I think it's working out well. It's not. I wouldn't call that brilliant yet, but it's a very thoughtful one. Depending upon what happens from now on, we have to keep an eye on what happens. How Iran is going to counter. How much Iran is going to follow in terms of what it agreed in the first deal, in the so-called interim agreement, and of course, by the same token, how much we can deliver. We haven't even talked about how we talked about Israel, but the number one enemy of peace deal with Iran is the U.S. Congress, which is heavily influenced by the Israeli lobby. And U.S. congressmen and senators, they love to get on this public media and rant and rave against Iran. And listen to the rhetoric. It's mediocre, it's uninformed, and it's borderline racist.
Well, let's take a short break again, Ehsan, and come back. I'd like to talk about how you think this is going to play out during the course of the interim agreement, and what the risks are as we go forward to try to reach a permanent agreement with them. Ehsan Ahrari of Strategic Paradigms. We're talking For Better or Worse in the Middle East here on West of Asia in the ThinkTech series. We'll be right back after this short break.
We want to thank our underwriters.
Hawaiian Electric Company and its affiliates Maui Electric on Maui and Hawaii Electric Light Company on Hawaii Island are deeply committed to the communities they serve.
Galen Ho is a senior executive of BAE Systems, a global defense, security, and aerospace company.
The High Tech Development Corporation, the state's leading technology agency, attached to the Department of Business, Economic Development, and Tourism.
Castle and Cook Hawaii, with a time-honored legacy that spans more than 160 years and revolves around its mission of investing in Hawaii, creating communities, and providing for the needs of our state.
Hawaii Gas, formerly the gas company, a proponent of the liquefied natural gas initiative, helping Hawaii achieve its transition to clean energy and a better energy future.
Collateral Analytics, a Hawaii-based tech company empowering the real estate industry with greater and faster access to the tools and data they need to make better informed property investment decisions.
I'm Nicole Horry. Thanks so much for joining us on ThinkTech.
I'm Maria Kashem. See you next time.
Okay, we're back. We're live with Ehsan Ahrari, Dr. Ehsan Ahrari of Strategic Paradigms, a consulting organization in the Beltway in Washington. We're talking about the Middle East, and the title of our show is For Better or Worse These Days in the Middle East, in the West of Asia series on ThinkTech. So, Dr. Ahrari, can we talk for a minute about exactly what was agreed in this interim agreement with Iran, and what is left to be agreed later?
Well, just very few things were agreed upon. That's why it's called an interim agreement. It's going to last for 6 months. First of all, Iran, in principle, said it's going to the type of enrichment of uranium is going to be 5%, as opposed to the 20% level of uranium, which is high grade uranium.
And that's effective right now.
I'm sorry?
Is that effective right now?
Yeah, right now it's effective. So that's one thing. One of the most important things that we wanted Iran to do is to stop the development of its heavy water processing plant, because that heavy water processing plant is going to enable Iran to produce, to accelerate the pace of developing nuclear weapons and get closer to the development of nuclear weapons. We have no agreement on that. Iran is not happy with what we gave them as a result of their major concession, what they call major concession, of lowering the level of uranium enrichment. So Iran wants to see how much more are we going to offer. Those are the kind of two important things that stand out. And prior to the negotiations, President Obama and his top aides, his personal envoys, have been giving all kinds of assurances to Iran about United States' willingness to deal with Iran as a legitimate government. So that becomes a very powerful motive for Iran. But
because
we have a number of problems. We have a problem from Israel, as I discussed, but that's problem number two. I would say U.S. Congress is the number one enemy of Israel, and U.S. Congress are working in tandem to defeat it. And of course, the fact that things are not going well for President Obama about this Obamacare business, his popularity has dwindled, so that has kind of weakened him. So Obama badly needs the success of this agreement.
Yeah.
Okay. From the Iranian side, if Iranians were to see that they are not getting what they really are looking for, that is, lifting of sanctions and transfer of technology, doing business with Western oil companies. If they see that that's not what's happening in the future, then Khamenei, the supreme leader that I mentioned a few minutes ago, mm-hmm. he might turn the plug. He may undo all the progress. U.S. Congress is by the same token is equally dangerous because they are rebelling against President Obama. They are very critical of President Obama of dealing with Iran. They're saying that we're getting a short deal. What deal? It's an interim deal. It's not a short deal or a bad deal or a good deal. We're doing a step-by-step diplomacy. So by just looking at one step by itself, one stage or one phase, you cannot pass sweeping judgment. But if you were to listen to last Sunday's talk shows here in Washington D.C., you would think that Obama is willing to just trade the entire U.S. advantages in one fell swoop, and Iran is going to be the happiest country in the world. That's not going to happen. So I think President Obama's handling of it is pretty good. I think. Kerry's rhetoric is sometimes it gets embarrassing, but I think he's doing this.
What is it with him? I mean, people are questioning whether he went too far or whether he handled this exactly right. What's the issue there? How well is he doing, really?
I think he's not. I don't think he's acting like a loose gun. Absolutely not. That's one of the position that Senator John McCain took in a public appearance here in D.C. a couple of weeks ago. Mm-hmm. He has been in the U.S. Senate for so long that he still thinks that he's a senator. He gives these rambling statements. It sounds like he's grandstanding. He's not. That's how he talks. So he's the guy who, remember, famously in a debate with Bush, he said, "I voted for such and such legislation, and then I voted against it." So that became, it's a classic statement of his convoluted thinking. Well, actually, in reality, it was a complicated thinking. He was explaining a very complicated issue, but the way it came out, it made his thinking convoluted and double speak, or the guy who's flip flopping. So that kind of a convoluted style of diplomacy becomes somewhat embarrassing for him and embarrassing for President Obama. But that's why everything that I have seen, talking to people here and read, President Obama is very much supportive of him, and he is, of course, you know that foreign policy is Obama's business. Obama's White House is running the foreign policy of this country. So. That was true when Hillary was in the State Department, and it's still true today. So, as long as that's happening, as long as the president is happy with him, he's going to be given enough leash. He's going to be given enough instructions and enough talking points to make sure that he doesn't screw up.
On this agreement in general, is there a possibility that we've fallen into something where the Iranians will continue building weapons, and we won't be able to control, won't be able to monitor their activities. And the next time we look, we'll find that they achieved exactly what they were looking for before.
No, I have very serious doubt, because what they have agreed on is allowing the international IAEA, International Atomic Energy Agency, which is the UN watchdog, complete and unfettered access, and they have agreed for transparency in this agreement. So those are two other very important developments. No, they're not going to catch us napping. No way. But you see, I don't want to minimize the significance of the complications that are involved. The bad will and the bad frame of mind, poisonous frame of mind that prevailed between the United States and Iran for 30 plus years. All of that has to work out, but all of that is going to work to the advantage of the United States as well as Iran, provided that we can offer each side can offer the other something they can take home and show it to their. We can show it to our Congress, and Iran can show it to the Supreme Leader Khamenei, and it's endorsed by him.
Well, do you think that that it will stick? I mean, and if it doesn't stick, I mean, it's hard to make a prediction. I know you're talking about so many variables, but let's assume it does not stick. Where do we go from there? Do we go back to square one? Is it more dangerous, less dangerous, or has this opened a channel that will ultimately somehow put us both in a better position?
The last one. I tend to think the possibility of the last option, the last scenario that you described, because both sides badly needs that agreement. Iran has been saying that we have no interest in developing nuclear weapons, and we are saying, okay, we hear what you're saying, but we don't believe you. So negotiation is the best way to make sure that you develop a powerful framework whereby Iran will not be able to develop nuclear weapons, but Iran in turn wants certain things, and as long as we can offer it, as long as President Obama is able to deliver it, I think things will continue to go.
Well, one of the best at the optimistic side of it, Ehsan, let's assume it works. Let's assume it works. And that what our wishes for a long-term agreement with them work. What's the effect on the Middle East? What's the effect on Iran's influence over Iraq, to the extent there is, and all the other nations that are involved, including Israel? Does it build stability? What happens?
It will definitely build stability in West Asia because. It's an extremely complicated region. We barely scratched the surface. We haven't even talked about the animosity and hatred between Saudi Arabia and Iran. Since the interim agreement, everybody's talking about how mad Israelis are. Nobody's talking about how mad Saudis are. So we have to assuage their fears, their concerns. So yeah, if things go well, the United States can assuage Saudi's fears. It can work with Israel, and of course, it can persuade Iran to be less controversial, less revolutionary. In the Middle East right now, there's a big competition going between the United States and Iran. Has been for the past 30 years. Mm-hmm. We have been trying to bring about regime change by hook or by crook, mostly by crook. And Iran is making sure that it undermines our strategic advantages in the Middle East. And Afghanistan every which way you can. So all of these things will come to an end once the United States and Iran were to establish diplomatic ties and start working together. So in that sense, the future is very, very hopeful, bright, and prosperous.
Well, how about the effect on Syria? I mean, that hasn't gotten better. There's continuing violence there, continuing, it's just really awful. And I wonder about your thoughts on whether this agreement would have some salutary effect, some effect that could ultimately, contribute to a resolution of the Syrian crisis.
That is an excellent question. My sense is that on that particular issue, the United States and Iran will have a tough time agreeing because we want regime change in Syria. In Syria, majority of Syria are Sunnis, and the minority of the minorities, the Alawite sect, which is Shia, they are the rulers. So Iran's presence in Syria has a lot to do with that reality. So if Bashar al-Assad goes, then the next regime is going to be, next government of Syria is going to be heavily dominated by the Sunnis. That means Iran's influence will turn from 100 to 0 overnight. So Iran is not going to preside over the demise of Bashar al-Assad, given the kind of things that are at stake for Iran. So the question is it possible for United States to persuade the anti-Bashar al-Assad forces to agree to some sort of a compromise whereby Bashar al-Assad stays in power? And that's an impossibility. But if that impossibility were to turn into a possibility, then the chances of U.S.-Iranian cooperation are there. Otherwise, Iran is not going to cooperate. That's going to be a sore spot on the ties of the United States and Iran.
Well, assuming that happens, assuming that Iran, stands in the way of a regime change, and the U.S. has committed itself to a regime change, we're in stasis again, with a really horrible war going on, revolution, whatever you call it. Where does that put President Obama? Does he lose credibility by that? That this agreement that he's pushing then ultimately has the effect of going into stalemate as far as Syria is concerned. Will he lose international credibility, and what can he do about it?
Well, there's nothing he can do about it. If that were to happen, then he can explain it away. He's going to lose credit. Those who don't like what's happening in Syria, those who don't like the fact that he gave them ultimatum and he changed his mind, they'll continue to criticize him. Mm-hmm. But those who understand the nuances of his action, and those who agree with the statement that what Obama did, changing his mind about not taking military action, or about taking military action against Bashar al-Assad, he did a great service to our national interest, and I'm one of them who believes that. Then they would be sympathetic to what happens if nothing happens. But that's an issue on which Russia and United States are on the same wavelength. It so happens that Iran is also siding with the Soviet perspective. Soviet Union is on Russia. I'm sorry. Russia is very much interested in keeping Bashar al-Assad in power. So on that issue, it's possible that some sort of a stalemate or some sort of a rapprochement might emerge. In the ultimate analysis, I don't think Iran is wedded to Bashar al-Assad. If there is another compromise whereby Iran can also have its presence and influence in Syria, the chances of which are not very good. But nothing is impossible.
Mm. You're right when you said, I think even more right as time goes by, that this whole thing around Iran is the Super Bowl of diplomacy, and I would say, and see if you agree, that this has got to be the most complex diplomatic situation where the U.S. is directly involved with all these countries. We've never been as directly involved before. There's never been so much, difficulty around the diplomatic issues before, and so much risk if they fail. Don't you think?
Oh yeah. Well, Obama is being very courageous, and of course, he has to be because he has no other choice. We have to succeed in the Middle East. We don't have an option of failing in the Middle East. Yeah. So in that sense, he's doing the right thing.
Well, one more country I just wanted to ask you about. We haven't covered Egypt, and Egypt is still, what do you want to call it? It's not where we want it to be. What is happening there, and what's the trajectory for Egypt?
I think Egypt is a simmering cauldron. It's waiting for another explosion. The military has killed the democracy, and they're promising that they bring the democracy back, but I have very serious doubts. You take a look at what they're doing. They're having a spending contest with Prime Minister Erdogan because he was a supporter of President Morsi, and they are appointing all these judges and politicians. They are just, they have brought back most of the laws which were in operation during the days of Hosni Mubarak. So Egypt has gone back. And there's very little influence we have because Obama administration has been kind of hard on the military, but not all the way hard because we want to save the peace treaty that Israel and Egypt signed in 1979 under the presidency of President Jimmy Carter, the Camp David agreements. So we don't want to jeopardize that. So that's what driving us. That's why we never called the political coup that ousted President Mohamed Morsi in July political coup, because our laws were to be immediately implemented and all assistance to Egypt would have been curtailed. So we're still keeping the door open. I mean, Kerry went there recently and gave a lecture to know about democracy. They kind of looked at him and listened to him and yawned and looked away and said, okay, that's fine. The Saudis, our friends Saudis are undermining us. The economic assistance that we suspended, Saudis said, okay, we're going to give you $8 billion. So because they hated the Islamic Brotherhood because they want their Wahhabi, fanatic kind of system there. So Saudis are undermining us in a big way.
Oh, interesting. Well,
so
it's a moving target in all ways, isn't it?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
I hope we can stay in touch with you, and in a couple of weeks come back and see it change, and evaluate our prospects again, and see what the U.S. can do to best protect itself in a very difficult, if not critical, imbroglio. Anyway, thank you, Ehsan. Ehsan Ahrari of Strategic Paradigms. Talking about For Better or Worse in the Middle East as part of our West of Asia series. We look forward to having you on over and over again to help us keep educated about events in the region. Thank you so much, Ehsan.
Mahalo and happy Thanksgiving.
The same to you. Take care, Ehsan.
Bye-bye.
Aloha.